What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now, it is 14:52 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East. So, the U.S. shot down an Iranian drone that was approaching the aircraft carrier deployed off the coast of Oman. So we're hearing that this was a Shahed 139. This is one of the suicide drones that Russia uses against Ukraine. And apparently it was flying towards the USS Abraham Lincoln and was shot down by a Marine Corps F-35. And this happened in the Arabian Sea. This is being reported by Reuters. This happened just about 2 or 3 hours ago. So this is extremely serious, guys. Things are really escalating. And also right now we have 2 U.S. nuclear war command and control planes airborne over the continental United States. These planes are responsible for communicating with our submerged nuclear-armed submarines, and they can send out nuclear targeting information and nuclear launch codes. And then we also have a B-1 bomber that was flying over Nebraska and is now looping over Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. So our nuclear forces are definitely on high alert. Last night we had up to 3 nuclear war command and control planes airborne at one time. So this is clearly related to Iran. And shifting gears real quick to Europe, we had some very concerning news come out of Europe last night and this morning. So there was a massive attack on Ukraine last night. Russia launched the biggest attack on Ukraine's infrastructure so far in 2026 last night. And what's interesting is right after the attack, a U.S. Air Force Nuke Sniffer plane was flying very low in the Baltic Sea, and it made multiple passes north to south from right off the coast of Poland to up near Finland, and it was flying probably about 10,000 feet, which is very low for a nuke sniffer, and it was just doing back and forth paths here through the Baltic Sea, which means that it was potentially trying to get a bead on potentially a Russian nuclear weapon in the Baltics or in the Baltic Sea, or any kind of Russian nukes that are deployed in Kaliningrad, or possibly a Russian nuclear-powered or nuclear-armed submarine in the Baltic Sea. So this is very, very serious, guys. And we have new satellite imagery showing a large number of U.S. military aircraft at Diego Garcia, including 3 KC-135 Stratotankers, which are aerial refuelers for fighter jets and bombers and recon platforms, a P-8 Poseidon Subhunter, an HC-130J Super Hercules combat search and rescue aircraft, and finally an MC-130J Commando 2 special operations aircraft, okay? So those Commando 2s are planes that are used by Tier 1 units like Delta Force and the Navy SEALs, okay? So the U.S. is clearly preparing for some type of operation in the Middle East against Iran. And there was also a U.S. Marine Corps KC-130T cargo plane that flew from Dubai's Al Manad Air Base to Diego Garcia earlier today. And Iran has demanded last-minute changes to the venue and format of planned negotiations with the U.S. scheduled for Friday, according to Axios. Tehran is backing away from understandings reached in recent days after multiple countries had already been invited to take part. Iran now wants the talks moved from Istanbul to Oman and insists the discussions be held strictly in a bilateral format with the U.S. So Iran doesn't want to have the meetings in Turkey. They want them in Oman, and they don't want any third-party mediators. They just want the U.S. and themselves, okay? And we're hearing that the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier has pulled back from the coast of Iran to around 1,400 kilometers or 870 miles amid negotiations scheduled on Friday. It was initially moved to within 500 miles or about 700 kilometers off the coast of Iran. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with those negotiations. And the British Maritime Trade Operations reports a security incident occurred in the Strait of Hormuz earlier today off of Iran's southern coast. According to the report, a vessel was approached and surrounded by several small armed boats. The ship ignored instructions to stop and is continuing along its planned route. And then we're hearing from the Wall Street Journal that Iranian gunboats approached a U.S. oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz and ordered it to stop and prepare to be boarded. Instead, the vessel sped up and was later escorted by a U.S. warship. So I don't know if those are two separate instances or incidents, or if they're the same. But if that's true, if these were Iranian gunboats that tried to board a U.S. oil tanker, I can't see how negotiations with Iran are going to go well at all, okay? And the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, are meeting today with the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff in Israel. The IDF Chief of Staff and the head of Mossad have also been summoned to the meeting. So this is very, very serious. And we know that the Israeli Chief of Staff, Zamir, was already in the U.S. on Friday and had already met with Dan Kane, the U.S. top general. Okay, so they're clearly preparing for some type of operation against Iran. And Russian President Vladimir Putin held a phone call with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman earlier today. So Putin is speaking to a lot of these Middle Eastern leaders now. So that's very concerning. We also know that the aide to Khamenei's the supreme leader of Iran, flew to Moscow last week and met with Putin. Okay, so Putin knows something is about to go down. And the Iranian parliament's deputy speaker said today that in about a month we will recite the funeral prayer for Trump, the United States, and their allies. Wow. So that's pretty serious. And Axios said that Israel has opposed the smaller scale strikes Trump was considering 3 weeks ago out of a sense they would merely be symbolic and not worth the risk of massive retaliation. Interesting. And Israel believes that Trump is building legitimacy for a major strike on Iran. And before I continue with the Iran news, I wanted to just share this flight path of a U.S. Navy recon plane or drone that was flying off the coast of Venezuela late last night and early this morning. This is very interesting because we've already captured Maduro and things seem to have quieted down in Venezuela, so I don't know why they're sending recon planes suddenly here. I guess to follow up and make sure nothing is going on over there. And I wanted to just play this clip of Trump from yesterday talking about Iran. He basically reiterated what he said over the weekend, that we have the biggest and best ships going to Iran right now, and that if talks don't work out, it may be bad for Iran. So just take a listen to what he had to say for himself.
We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best. And we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out. We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best. And ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best. And we have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best. And we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out.
All right, so Trump is definitely itching to bomb Khamenei, I think. Regardless of what he says, I think he really wants to take out the Iranian leadership, and I think Khamenei really pissed him off last week when he accused Trump of supporting the protesters, and some of the digs that Khamenei said directed towards Trump. I think Trump really didn't like that. And what you're looking at here is a massive bazaar that caught fire in the capital of Tehran today. This was at the Janat Bazaar shopping center. No casualties were reported, but I wonder if this was the work of saboteurs embedded inside of Iran preparing the ground for this massive operation. And then here you can see the satellite imagery of some of the U.S. Air Force assets in Diego Garcia, which is the base in the Indian Ocean. You can see the Commando 2 C-130 here, the Special Operations C-130. You can tell because it's a darker color. And then here you can see one of the recon planes and aerial refuelers. And Israeli sources told CNN that Israel will demand that Tehran give up enriched uranium and completely abandon the ballistic missile program. And open source intelligence is saying that roughly 110 C-17 cargo planes flew to Qatar and the Middle East in the last week or so, including 5 flights of C-5 Super Galaxies, which are the largest cargo planes in the U.S. military. So C-5s are number 1, and then C-17s are number 2. And numerous C-130 flights have moved troops and equipment into the region. More than 40 of the roughly 110 strategic airlift flights tracked so far involved C-17s and C-5s and are assessed to be transporting U.S. air defense systems. Also, up to 20 aerial refueling aircraft are based in the region. So looks like maybe a third of those 110 C-17 flights were carrying air defense systems like THAADs and Patriots. And Iranian state broadcasting threatened the UAE if Iran gets attacked. They stated if the U.S. attacks Iran, Iran's target will be the United Arab Emirates. I am not talking about the Emirati people or the Emirati government. I am talking about the American UAE. Yes, the UAE is the 51st state of the United States, and the following targets will be struck. Dubai Airport Free Zone. Out of 280 four-star hotels in the area, 240 are owned by Americans. Dubai International Financial Center, described as the largest U.S. money laundering hub in the world, and Dubai Internet City, home to major American companies such as Meta, Google, IBM, and Microsoft. Wow. And what you're looking at here are the paths of all the missiles that were launched at Ukraine from Russia. They mostly targeted the capital, Kyiv, and parts of eastern Ukraine, but they also targeted Odessa and Vinnytsia. Multiple power stations and substations were taken down. Some of the most notable ones included the 750,000 volt or 750 kilovolt electrical substation in the capital region of Ukraine. That is massive, guys. 750,000 volt substation. That's like a major substation that probably feeds power into a large part of the city from regional power sources. And they also took out the Kyiv CHP-5 and CHP-4 heat and power plants in Kyiv. And also a major power plant in the Kharkiv area was taken down, the Tech 5 power plant, and then also the Tripilia power plant and numerous other power plants across eastern and central Ukraine. Also, local sources in Odessa are reporting that major shopping centers in Odessa were targeted. That's pretty interesting. And we have some footage showing a Russian Zircon hypersonic cruise missile that was intercepted by Ukrainian air defenses overnight. I'll show you guys that in just a minute. And Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said a U.S. missile defense buildup in Greenland would prompt a response by Russia. Interesting. And I wanted to just play this clip of Trump talking about Ukraine yesterday, saying that he spoke to Putin and Putin agreed to pause attacks on Ukraine's energy for a week. Well, shortly after he spoke with Putin, Putin launched this massive attack, the largest attack of the year so far on Ukraine. So Putin clearly is going to do what he wants. It doesn't matter how many times Trump talks to him or asks him. Putin's going to do what he wants. He said numerous times the special military operation will be brought to a completion. So let me just play this for you. Take a listen.
There's tremendous hatred between Zelensky and Putin. Tremendous hatred. I mean, it's a shame, but it's taken longer than we thought. I did call up President Putin, and he's agreed. He's put it out to. They have the same cold wave that we do. Maybe different because it's pretty far away, but it's the equivalent. And Ukraine's a very cold country. It's much colder than us. It's colder than, they say, on average, it's Canada or colder. And on top of that, they have a tremendous cold wave. And I asked him if he wouldn't shoot for a period of 1 week, no missiles going into Kiev or any other towns, and he's agreed to do it. So it's something.
Okay, so there he said that Putin agreed to it, but clearly he didn't. And Ukraine and its Western allies have agreed on a 3-step enforcement plan for any future ceasefire with Russia, according to the Financial Times. If Russia violates a truce, the response would escalate from diplomatic warnings within 24 hours to European military intervention, and then to a U.S.-backed military response within 72 hours if attacks continue. The proposal was discussed between Ukrainian, European, and American officials on several occasions in December and January and is intended to prevent a repeat of past failed ceasefires such as the Minsk agreements, which collapsed due to a lack of enforcement. So this is huge, guys. They've already discussed this. Okay, this would involve European and then U.S. military intervention if Russia violated any kind of ceasefire, and the U.S. would be brought in within 72 hours. So you see where this is going, guys? This could end up leading to a major conflict. And an unidentified drone crashed into a military base in Poland. The incident occurred at the end of January, reported Polish radio channel Z. According to the channel, the drone hit a military base in the town of Przasnysz on Wednesday, January 28th. The drone reportedly landed about 70 meters from an ammunition depot. The on-duty crew observed the drone above the base before the crash. After a preliminary inspection, the soldiers on duty took the drone into one of the buildings. There are suspicions that it was a reconnaissance drone that was mapping antennas. A source with insight into the channel states. The informant also says that Polish soldiers made a mistake immediately after the crash. After the crash, a mistake was made. The drone was brought into the building, even though it may still have been operational and collecting data. Wow. According to current procedures, it should have been covered with a net or tarpaulin and not moved, the source said. The Polish military police is investigating the incident as a violation of the Aviation Act. Przasnysz is a city in central Poland. The city's military base is a central part of the country's defense capabilities. The military base conducts advanced electronic intelligence and surveillance operations in northeastern Poland, including monitoring the strategically important Suwalki corridor. Okay, so this is huge news, guys. This random drone crashing next to this electronic surveillance base in northeast Poland. Okay, probably Russian or Belarusian. Wow. And 2 shipyard workers have been arrested of attempting to sabotage multiple German Navy warships in Hamburg, Germany. A 37-year-old Romanian and a 54-year-old Greek have been detained by German authorities. German outlet Bild reported the men poured corrosive material into a warship's engine block, punctured freshwater pipes, removed fuel tank caps, and disabled electrical safety switches on the vessels. Wow. So very, very concerning. And here we have the video footage of the Ukrainians shooting down a Russian Zircon hypersonic missile. So these are one of the Russian wonder weapons, as I like to call them, or Wunderwaffe. Okay, just like how Hitler had his wonder weapons that, he thought were just, the best thing in the world and nobody could overcome them. And, Putin's basically following the footsteps of Hitler in the sense that he's obsessed with these wonder weapons, that just wow everybody. Well, it looks like one of his wonder weapons got defeated by the Ukrainians. And looks like the U.S. House has passed a funding bill for the budget, and so the government shutdown is supposed to end tomorrow. And Israel reopened Gaza's Rafah border crossing with Egypt for the first time in nearly 2 years, allowing only limited numbers of patients and other Palestinians to leave or return. And China has unveiled a blackout bomb, a new weapon capable of disrupting power grids over 10,000 square meters, so that would be 10 square kilometers, or about 6 square miles, using carbon filament payloads focused on temporary infrastructure impact without physical destruction. So this would take down the power grid in a 6 square mile area, but it wouldn't do physical damage. So the only thing I can think of why the Chinese would be doing this is for an attack on Taiwan, or potentially a future attack on the U.S. where they want to take the land, take the infrastructure, but obviously they have to neutralize the infrastructure during the invasion, but they don't want to destroy it. And the European Union plans to propose a critical minerals partnership to the U.S. aimed at reducing reliance on China and curbing Beijing's influence over global mineral supply chains, according to Bloomberg. Under the proposal, the EU and the U.S. would develop a strategic partnership roadmap within 3 months focused on finding alternative sources of critical minerals and cutting dependence on cheap and abundant Chinese supplies. Key elements of the plan include cooperation to secure supply chains, deeper industrial and economic integration, and joint research and innovation across the entire critical minerals value chain. So that would be a big deal if they could pass that. And a Russian Ilyushin 76 cargo plane arrived in Cuba yesterday, marking another high-profile military flight in Latin America. So this is interesting because we know that Cuba is now under an oil embargo. The U.S. is blocking any oil shipments into Cuba. They're trying to basically collapse the Cuban regime by blocking oil shipments. And now Russia is sending planes to Cuba. We know that Cuba is a long-term ally of Russia, and Russia will definitely not be happy if the Trump administration overthrows the communist government there and collapses it. So we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But I want to remind you guys that on Thursday, the START II treaty officially expires, and there have been no discussions between Trump and Putin to continue them. So that means we're basically back to the Wild West days of the early Cold War, where there was basically uncontrolled nuclear arms buildup. Okay, so we'll have to wait and see what the Trump administration does after the START treaty expires. Is he going to rearm our Minuteman missiles, which were stripped down from 3 warheads per missile to just 1 warhead per missile? Is he going to rearm the Trident missiles onto the Ohio-class subs, which used to carry 24 missiles per sub, and now they're down to just 20 per sub? We'll have to wait and see, but a clear indication is the defense budget for next year. Trump wants a $1.5 trillion defense budget. And Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify before Congress in an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. The move comes just days before a vote to hold them in contempt of Congress for previously refusing to appear. The House Oversight Committee has been seeking their testimony for months. And Paris cybercrime police, with support from Europol, raided the French offices of X as part of an investigation into the platform's recommendation algorithm and its AI chatbot Grok. The investigation began in January of 2025, initially focusing on content amplified by X's algorithm, and was later expanded to include Grok. Prosecutors say the inquiry concerns the alleged promotion or spread of illegal content, including sexual deepfakes, child sexual abuse material, and Holocaust denial. Authorities said Elon Musk and former X-chief executive Linda Yaccarino have both been summoned to testify at hearings scheduled for April. Wow. X has rejected the allegations, insisting it has done nothing wrong and claiming the investigation is politically motivated. Wow. And there was another strong solar flare today. We had an X 8.1 class flare on Sunday, and then suddenly we have this X 1.5. So this could potentially have some effects here on Earth. We'll have to keep an eye on it to see if there's any interference with radio and with communications, and also potentially low latitude auroras. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with more breaking news. Follow me on Twitter at NYPrepper1 for updates throughout the day. Also, I have my 24/7 live stream running right now, and my wonderful moderators stop in periodically throughout the day to keep people updated in the chat. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video.